Once upon a time, there was a beautiful woman named Amara, who lived in the vibrant city of Lagos, Nigeria. She was loved by everyone who knew her, her infectious smile lighting up even the darkest rooms. Her laughter, soft but melodic, spread warmth wherever she went. Her beauty was matched only by her kindness, and she had a heart of gold. One day, Amara returned home from work, tired but satisfied after a long day in her fast-paced city. She lived alone in a modest apartment, with the noise of the busy streets outside her window often serving as a backdrop to her quiet moments. As she approached her door, she noticed a small package sitting outside. She bent down and picked it up, wondering who might have sent it. There was no name, no identifying marker. It was just a plain brown box. Curious, she stepped inside and immediately began inspecting the package, hoping to find a note that would reveal its sender. But all she found was a small, simple card that read, "May the aura of this perfume bring you the attention you deserve." Amara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The perfume bottle inside the box was unlike any she had ever seen before. It was made of crystal glass, and the golden nozzle gleamed as the light from her living room lamp reflected off it. The bottle shimmered in the dim light, almost magical in its appearance. A soft smile spread across her face as she assumed it must be a gift from a secret admirer, or perhaps a client who wanted to show appreciation. But she was also somewhat apprehensive. Without thinking too much about it, her curiosity got the better of her, and she spritzed the perfume lightly on her neck. The fragrance was divine, sweet jasmine mixed with sandalwood. She inhaled deeply, the scent enveloping her, calming her nerves. It was so beautiful that she closed her eyes and imagined herself in a peaceful garden. But just as the scent seemed to settle, something unusual began to happen. Her nose twitched and she felt a slight irritation in her eyes. They began to water. Amara frowned, feeling a small discomfort. She brushed it off as stress from the busy day, thinking it would pass. Dropping the perfume bottle on her dresser, she decided to get ready for bed, dismissing the strange sensation as an aftereffect of the scent. She had a busy morning ahead and needed her rest. When Amara woke up the next morning, she was immediately struck by a terrible smell that filled her room. It was so strong that it made her stomach churn. She couldn't pinpoint the source at first, but the smell was overwhelming. As she walked to the bathroom to freshen up, it grew stronger. She turned her head to the side, trying to avoid it, but it seemed to follow her. "Where is that coming from?" she whispered to herself. Her heart began to race as she wondered if she had somehow spilled something. She took a long bath, scrubbing herself clean, but no matter how much she washed, the smell persisted. It was foul, like stagnant water mixed with rotten eggs. It clung to her skin, refusing to fade. When Amara arrived at work, her colleagues were quick to notice the unpleasant odor. "Is there a dead rat somewhere?" someone whispered. Another colleague said it smelled like sewage. Amara's face flushed with embarrassment as she realized that the terrible stench was coming from her. She couldn't understand it. The perfume, the gift she had received, seemed to be the only explanation. As she sat at her desk, her best friend, Sunil, approached her. Sunil wrinkled her nose slightly, clearly uncomfortable but still trying to be gentle. "Amara, I think something's wrong," she said softly. "Should we go see a doctor?" Amara was mortified. She didn't know what was happening to her. She could feel the humiliation sinking in. By the time she returned home that evening, she was desperate to wash the smell away. She took another bath, using every soap and body wash she had, but the stench only grew worse. It stuck to her like a shadow, refusing to let go. Later that evening, her boyfriend, Kwame, came to visit. He had been her partner for over a year, and she had hoped he could offer some comfort. But the moment he stepped into her apartment, his face twisted in disgust. "What is that smell?" he gasped, covering his nose. Kwame, please. I don't know what's happening, Amara replied, her voice breaking as she saw the expression on his face. Kwame stepped back, holding his nose tightly. You smell like a dead carcass. What did you do to smell like this? He asked in horror. Amara stood there, heartbroken by his cruel words. She had never seen him react this way before. Kwame, please, Amara pleaded, but he shook his head and stepped towards the door. I can't be around you like this. Not until you fix whatever is going on with you, he said, his voice cold. Without another word, he walked out, leaving Amara standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. The weight of his rejection was unbearable. Feeling utterly alone, Amara reached out to Zanil, who arrived at her apartment a few hours later. Zanil found Amara in tears, her eyes swollen from crying. She sat with her friend, trying to comfort her, but even she couldn't ignore the stench that seemed to suffocate the room. Zanil, though visibly repulsed, still hugged Amara tightly, assuring her that everything would be okay. As the night wore on, Amara began to recount everything that had happened since she received the mysterious gift. Zanil listened carefully before turning to the dresser, where the perfume still sat. Amara, she said slowly, I believe that Perfume is behind all of this. Amara's eyes widened in shock as she looked at the perfume. Zanil picked it up and, without another word, smashed it on the ground. The bottle shattered, the contents evaporating before their eyes. But even as the golden shards glittered on the floor, the stench in the air remained, thick and suffocating. It's gone now, Zanil said softly. Whatever curse was in that bottle should be broken now. But Amara still felt it. The smell clung to her skin, her hair, and even her soul. What if it's not just the perfume, she whispered, her voice breaking. What if it's me? Zanil hugged her tightly, though she winced slightly as the scent assaulted her senses. No, Amara. Not you. We'll figure this out together. You're not alone, she said. That night, Zanil stayed with Amara. They barely slept as Amara cried herself into exhaustion. In the early hours of the morning, Amara woke to the faint sound of Zanil talking to someone on the phone. Zanil had called a healer, someone her grandmother trusted to deal with the supernatural. She had heard stories of people being cursed by mysterious forces, and this felt like one of those cases. Amara, exhausted and confused, could barely process everything. The events of the past days felt like a bad dream, but the overwhelming stench that refused to leave her body made it all too real. The healer, an older woman named Mama Nia, arrived the next morning. Her presence was commanding yet peaceful. Dressed in traditional African attire, her silver hair tied neatly into a bun, Mama Nia was a woman of wisdom and experience. She carried with her an air of calm that made even the most skeptical feel at ease. Amara, still reeling from the events, sat on her couch, her hands nervously clasped in her lap. Zanil was standing by her side, offering silent support. Mama Nia took her time inspecting the apartment, noting the broken perfume bottle on the floor. She didn't say anything at first. Instead, she sat quietly and began murmuring incantations under her breath. The rhythmic cadence of her words filled the room, and the atmosphere seemed to shift. After a few moments, she turned to Amara, her eyes sharp and perceptive. You have been cursed, my child, she said softly but firmly. Amara's heart sank. Cursed? How could I be cursed? I didn't ask for this. Mama Nia's gaze softened. The perfume was no gift. It was sent to you by someone who wished harm upon you. It was an ancient spell crafted to bring shame and suffering. They knew your heart, knew your kindness, and sought to destroy it. Tears welled up in Amara's eyes as the weight of Mama Nia's words settled in. But who would do such a thing? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mama Nia studied her for a moment, her eyes narrowing. There is someone who envies you, Amara. someone who feels threatened by your light. But fear not. We can undo this. You must be strong and you must be ready to face the truth. Only then can we break the curse. Amara nodded slowly, her thoughts racing. She couldn't fathom who would want to hurt her, but she knew that her life had to return to normal. She couldn't continue to live in this misery, especially not with the shadow of rejection and isolation hanging over her. Mama Nia instructed Amara to follow her as she prepared for the ritual. They moved to the balcony where the first light of dawn was beginning to break through the night sky. The healer began to chant once more, this time louder, her words reverberating through the air. Amara, though scared, felt a strange sense of hope rise within her. The healing energy that Mama Nia was calling upon felt tangible, like it was surrounding her, protecting her. As Mama Nia worked, Amara's thoughts drifted to the past few days. She thought of Kwame's harsh words, of Zanil's support, of her own growing desperation. And then a realization struck her. The curse wasn't just about the perfume. It was about the way she had allowed herself to be consumed by her insecurities. She had been so caught up in trying to please everyone, in making sure that everyone saw her as perfect, that she had forgotten the most important thing: her own self-worth. She had spent too many nights wondering if Kwame loved her, if her friends truly cared for her, if the people around her saw her for who she was or only for the image she had crafted. She had allowed the world's judgment to define her. But now, as Mama Nia worked to lift the curse, Amara could feel a shift within herself. She needed to find strength in who she was, regardless of what others thought. After what seemed like an eternity, Mama Nia fell silent, the chanting coming to an end. She turned to Amara, her face calm but knowing. "The curse is broken," she said, her voice gentle yet authoritative. "But remember this, child. The true magic lies within you, not in anyone else's opinion. If you are to live without fear of judgment, you must first accept yourself." Amara's heart fluttered as the weight she had carried for so long seemed to lift. She felt lighter, freer, as though a heavy cloud had been removed from her life. The scent that had clung to her body like a second skin began to fade, and soon, it was gone completely. Her skin no longer reeked of decay. He felt clean inside and out. "Thank you, Mama Nia," Amara said, her voice breaking with emotion. "You've given me more than just freedom from a curse. You've shown me that I have the power to reclaim my life." Mama Nia smiled, her eyes filled with wisdom. "You always had the power, child. You just needed to remember it." As the healer prepared to leave, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The curse had been lifted, but more importantly, she had learned a valuable lesson. The strength she sought was already within her. It wasn't in the approval of others or in the need to fit a perfect image. It was in embracing who she was and owning her uniqueness. In the days that followed, Amara began to rebuild her life. She reached out to Kwame, but this time she didn't need his approval. She didn't need to beg for his affection or accept his rejection. She understood now that her worth wasn't tied to someone else's perception of her. She reconnected with her friends, and even though the pain of rejection still stung, she realized that her happiness was in her hands. Zanil, who had remained by her side through it all, was there to support her every step of the way. The two friends often spent their evenings together, talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. They helped each other through the tough times just as they always had. One day, as Amara sat by the window in her apartment, watching the sun set over the city of Lagos, she smiled to herself. She had found peace, not in the absence of challenges, but in the realization that she was capable of facing them. With her newfound strength, Amara was ready to embrace whatever the future held. As Amara continued on her path to self-discovery, her life slowly began to take on new meaning. The experience with the curse had opened her eyes not only to the dark forces that sometimes lurk in the world but also to the incredible power that lay dormant within her. She had come to understand that true freedom could only be attained when she let go of her need for validation from others. She didn't need to fit into any mold. Her uniqueness was her strength. Months passed since Mama Nia had lifted the curse, and Amara found herself slowly regaining the confidence she had lost. No longer did she feel haunted by insecurities about her relationship with Kwame, nor did she fret about what people thought of her. She was learning to be unapologetically herself, and it felt liberating. One afternoon, Sunil visited Amara in her apartment. The two of them had become inseparable since the curse had been broken. Sunil, ever the practical one, had been a rock for Amara, offering advice and support when she needed it most. They sat together, sipping hibiscus tea, the warm fragrance of the drink adding to the peaceful ambience of the room. "You know," Sunil began, her eyes twinkling mischievously, "it's about time you get back into the dating scene." Amara blinked in surprise, her heart skipping a beat. "What? Dating? I'm still figuring out who I am. I'm not sure I'm ready to let anyone into my life yet." Sunil chuckled, leaning back against the couch. "You don't have to rush into anything, but don't shut yourself off completely. You deserve love, Amara. Real love. Not the kind that makes you feel like you have to change yourself to fit into someone else's world." Amara felt a twinge of unease at the thought of dating again. The scars from her relationship with Kwame still ran deep, and the idea of opening her heart to someone else felt like a huge leap. She wasn't sure if she was ready to take that step. "I don't know, Sunil," she confessed, her voice quiet. "I don't think I have the energy to go through all that again. What if it's the same as before? What if I get hurt again?" Sunil reached out and gently placed her hand on Amara's. "You're different now, Amara. You've grown. You've learned to stand strong in your own skin. You can handle whatever comes your way. But don't close yourself off. There's someone out there who will appreciate you for who you are, flaws and all." Amara took a deep breath, absorbing her friend's words. Maybe she wasn't ready for a relationship just yet, but Sunil had a point. She had spent so long trying to please others, so long adjusting herself to fit their expectations, that she had forgotten how to truly live for herself. Maybe it was time to step out of her comfort zone and see what the world had to offer. The following week, Amara made a decision that would change the course of her life. She signed up for a yoga class. It wasn't for anyone else, it was for her. She needed to reconnect with her body, with her own sense of peace and balance. The practice of yoga was something she had always been curious about but had never pursued. Now it felt like the right time to begin her journey toward inner peace. The first day of class was intimidating. Amara stood in a room full of strangers, feeling out of place and unsure of herself. But as the class began, something unexpected happened. The instructor, a woman named Imani, moved with such grace and fluidity that Amara found herself mesmerized. The calming atmosphere of the class helped her quiet the negative voices in her mind. With each breath, she felt more centered, more present in her body. It was a beautiful, transformative experience. By the time the class ended, Amara felt a renewed sense of energy. The tightness in her chest had loosened, and her mind, once plagued with doubts and insecurities, was now calm. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly at peace with herself. In the weeks that followed, Amara made yoga a part of her daily routine. Each class helped her regain a sense of control over her life. She learned to trust her instincts again, to stop second-guessing herself at every turn. And as her body grew stronger, so did her spirit. Meanwhile, Sunil noticed the change in her friend. Amara had begun to glow in a way that was hard to describe. There was a certain radiance about her, as though the darkness she had been carrying had been lifted. The transformation was evident, and Zanil couldn't help but smile every time she saw Amara walking down the street with confidence in her step. "You're looking incredible," Zanil remarked one day as they sat at their favorite cafe. "I can tell that yoga is doing wonders for you." Amara smiled, her eyes sparkling. "It feels amazing, Zanil. I feel like I'm getting to know myself again. I'm more at peace, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not trying to live up to anyone else's expectations." Zanil raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "So, have you thought about what you want in your next relationship?" Amara paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. "I've been thinking about it. I want something real this time, something that's built on trust, respect, and honesty. And I want to be with someone who understands that I don't need saving. I'm not looking for someone to fix me. I'm whole on my own." Zanil nodded in approval. "That's the spirit, Amara. You've come so far, and I know you'll find someone who appreciates you for everything you are." In time, Amara did start meeting new people. She didn't rush into anything, but she found herself enjoying the experience of getting to know different people. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of rejection. She had learned to embrace the ebb and flow of life, to trust that everything would fall into place when the time was right. And then one day, while attending a local art exhibition with Zanil, she met him. His name was Tabo, and there was something about him that felt different from anyone else she had ever met. He was kind, attentive, and most importantly, he saw her. Not just the outward version of herself, but the real Amara. Strong, independent, and unapologetically herself. They spent the evening talking, laughing, and sharing stories about their lives. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people enjoying each other's company. As the night ended, Tabo walked Amara to her car and gave her a gentle, sincere hug. "I had a great time tonight, Amara," he said with a warm smile. "I hope we can do this again sometime." Amara felt a flutter in her chest, but this time, it wasn't fear or uncertainty. It was the excitement of possibility. She didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time she wasn't afraid to find out. As Amara drove home that night, her heart was full. She had come so far since the days of self-doubt, fear, and rejection. She had learned to embrace her true self, to find strength in her vulnerability. And now, as she looked ahead to the future, she knew that whatever came next, whether it was love, adventure, or personal growth, she was ready for it. The curse that had once held her captive was long gone, but the lessons it had taught her would remain with her forever. She was not defined by her past or her struggles. She was a woman of strength, resilience, and limitless potential. And with that knowledge, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.